So, hello and welcome again to episode 12 of the Lucy and Tim Show. So, as always, this evening I'm joined by Lucy Buxton. Hi, Lucy.
Hello, Tim.
Lucy, do you remember a few weeks ago that your computer died?
It did.
Well, on Friday, one of my computers went into the blue screen.
No.
And it said on the blue screen, your computer needs to go to the repair shop. I took a photograph of my errant computer and sent it to the repair shop man and said, Jason, that's my repair shop man. Is this fixable or is it absolutely dead as a doornail? And apparently it's fixable. But this laptop has not moved off my desk since March 2020. And it's been plugged in to the power supply since March 2020. So now its battery, that's gone. So it must be contagious. Laptops blowing up. Well, so we decided that this episode we would talk about Teams, didn't we, Lucy?
We did.
But not Teams, the meeting software.
No.
But I'm in a happy place because I've just taught myself, and people are going to laugh now. I've just taught myself how to set up a Teams meeting. And it's taken me 4 years to actually overcome that I can never make it work. And I've just done it. And I've just done a demo Teams, and I got my poor wife to join in while I practice Teams. But that's not the kind of Teams we're going to talk about, is it?
No.
I hate Teams, by the way. That's Microsoft Teams.
I'm a Zoom girl.
Me too, but I'm a
What,
client.
a Zoom girl?
A Zoom girl. I must be a Zoom guy then.
You must be, yeah.
This is going in the wrong direction.
I never find Teams opens properly for me.
Well, I've got a client that's a local authority that insists that I deliver with Teams, even though I tell them it never really works properly.
Okay.
I think they're worried that someone's going to flash on Zoom or something, because somebody did once a long time ago, didn't they?
Well, there were those lockdown
There were
dramas on Zoom.
Mind you, on Zoom, I did have someone attend a training course and they were in the bath. On the training. I mean, in the bath, having a bath. I don't just mean sat in the bath. I mean, actually having a bath.
Did they have their camera on?
They did have their camera on.
Did they have a lot of bubbles?
There was a lot of dirty water.
Okay.
And you could not see any parts of anatomy that you shouldn't be seeing.
Okay.
But you could see a sort of torso.
Okay.
It was a male torso.
I don't know how I feel about that.
They were ejected.
From the bath or from the Zoom call?
Wouldn't it be good if you could do that?
I know.
Suck them down the plug on. No, we're going to talk about how to build and maintain an awesome team. And by that we mean a work team, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And that's super important in social care, because without people and the teams that people work in, there is no social care. And at the moment, as we record this, which is 7 minutes past 7 on a Monday night, I wonder how many teams are actually at work in social care at the moment. Must be tens of thousands, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what we could do is we could talk about conventional team theory, couldn't we?
We could.
But we're probably not going to, are we?
Well, who knows what might come up? But yes, we could talk about things like Tuckman.
We could talk about Tuckman, but everybody talks about Tuckman.
They do. He's a popular person.
For teamwork. I wonder if he worked with other people to come up with this theory, or like he did it on his own in a dark room.
Well, it was mentioned in an article, wasn't it, in I think 1969, and it was a statement he made in the article where people have come up with they've taken what he said and came up with the phrase forming, storming, norming, performing, and then there's the one afterwards that some teams do.
Adjourning.
Yep.
Which doesn't
Not all
rhyme,
teams
does
do
it?
that.
It doesn't rhyme, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It does if you're American. Adjourning.
Yeah.
Do you know what though? I was probably 2 or 3 when he came up with that. If it was 1969.
I seem to think something in my brain is telling me that it was in an article in 1969.
I was probably 2 or 3 years of age. And Lucy's thinking, I wasn't born then. See, big smile on their face. I wasn't born. So, what shall we talk about? We said we wouldn't talk about that, and we just are.
Yeah, but we didn't really talk about what it was.
That's the theory out the way, isn't it? So what shall we talk about? I think we should talk about people.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Because I think that the people that we employ are the most important asset that we have. And I've said this before. And if our people don't really have a plan, a purpose, direction, all that kind of stuff, then the business isn't going to be very good, is it?
I wonder how many teams are left to get on with it without a direction.
I would suggest quite a lot.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
I think probably if we think about what we talked about in the last episode, kind of the why for why businesses have been set up or how they've been set up. And we know that historically that if we go back to 1986 with the Griffiths report, when a lot of kind of care businesses started to kind of pop up, we know that there were a lot of people, and since then have set up businesses where they've not necessarily had that much hands-on or been involved in the business on the day-to-day basis to kind of establish the values and the direction and the mission and the purpose and all that kind of stuff. And I think my experience is that we're seeing a proportion of those people, or have seen a proportion of those businesses, either be sold or those individuals retire. And I'm seeing, I think, more businesses where there's far more intention.
So, are we saying that part of the value of any business is in the team that deliver the service?
I would say that's a large proportion, because if there's not the perceived value in the team that deliver the business, then they're not going to feel valued. They're not going to get necessarily the remuneration or the structure.
So when you take a social care business, a care home or a domiciliary care agency, if you value that, there is no value at all attached to the team. So
quite a sad fact, isn't it?
What's its value? It's a multiple of EBITDA, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
With the backstop of its bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
In a domiciliary care agency, it's a simple sum based upon contracted hours.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of, let's chuck a CQC or CIW or care inspector rating into the mix. But that isn't even important. And I learned this the other day. You know, if a care home isn't making money, you could argue that its value on a multiple of EBITDA is nil.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you could argue then its backstop value is its bricks and mortar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know how they value it? On what profit it should be making if it was run properly. That was the luck that Lucy's just done, is the luck that I made, except I made some expletives as well. Along the lines of, so my client has got to turn around this loss-making business and you're going to value it on the basis that she's turned it round when it hasn't been turned round. Yep, that's how it works.
So we're going to value it as a silk purse, even though potentially it's a sow's ear.
Correct, because you can make it into the silk purse.
Potentially.
Can you imagine if we applied that value? This is my rotten, falling down house. But I'm going to value it as if it was a luxury mansion, because you could make it into a luxury mansion. Or take this clapped out Mini and value it like it's a BMW 8 Series, because 8's made by BMW.
I wouldn't know. I don't drive a BMW. I
Drive
don't think
a
I want to.
What's wrong with BMWs? We mustn't be BMW.
It's the tyres. I don't like those run flat tyres. No.
We mustn't be prejudiced against BMWs.
No, I'm not being prejudiced. I'm just stating I don't like their tyres.
I suppose they're quite good if you have a puncture.
Yeah, probably.
I was postulating the other day, I do not even know if my car has a spare wheel. Do you know if your car has a spare wheel?
I know full well my car has not. I also know full well I've got a car that has to have one of those cans of squirty stuff that just gets you to the garage so that you can have your tyre repaired or have to purchase a new one.
Let me tell you a funny story about car tyres. How we got onto this? A long, long time ago when my wife and I were courting, I had a sports car. I still have a sports car. And we went for a nice meal in Usk. And on the way back, the car started behaving a bit sort of squirrely, as it does, you know.
Okay.
And then it started making a noise like this. So I pull over on the side of the dual carriageway and one of my back tyres is deflating.
Oh no.
Now there was a space saver wheel.
Okay.
But the wheels on my car were...
Okay.
And do you know where you put the wheel when you've taken it off and changed it?
Well, back in the space where the space saver was.
No, don't fit.
Well, no, it wouldn't do, would it? Because the space is for the space saver. And you're a
put
sports car, so
you
have you
put
got no back seats?
No, I had no back seats.
Did the tyre have to go on the girlfriend's lap?
You're supposed to put it in the bag that you put that's provided and put it on the passenger seat.
Okay.
So we didn't do that.
Okay.
As I said, it was deflating.
Did you have to deflate it a bit more?
No, we drove home like this. Cost me a whole tyre. Wait, but it got me a wife.
It got you a wife, did it?
It got me a wife.
Your ingenuity over the tyre moment.
Well, come on, if you were on a date with a bloke and in a sports car and you had to like wear a tyre in a bag to get home, what would you think? See,
Do you know what I'd do?
what would you do?
What I'd do is I'd tell him to get out the driver's seat. I'd drive home and make him carry the tyre.
At the time, she would have been a little bit scared to do that.
Why?
She would have been a bit scared. It took quite a while for her to get the confidence to drive the car.
Oh, okay. Oh, you see, I like cars. Give me a car and I'm
So
happy.
does
to
she.
use it.
Speed freak now. Anyway, so we've digressed as we always do. So back to teams and people. So what do you think managers need to do to get their team to build, to form? I was trying not to say the word form then, and I couldn't think of a word for form. And my head was shouting coalesce, but you'd just give me a funny look if I said coalesce. So how do we need to form a team? I think a common purpose is important.
Yeah. For me, it's the where are we going? What are we doing? Why are we here?
And CQC have got a quality statement about that.
Mhm.
It's in well led. Do you know what it's called?
What's
Shared direction and culture.
Okay.
That's the common purpose, isn't it?
Yeah. So it could be something like, I know what the organisation's mission is.
Often the organization doesn't know what the organization's mission is. I've said this to an organization within the last few weeks. Say, all I see on the wall is your mission statement. That is all I see of your mission statement. I do not see it in your team meetings. I do not see it in your induction. I do not see it in your supervision sessions. I do not see it in your appraisal records. But I see it on the wall.
Yeah, it's a sorry fact, isn't it? And then I guess it's things like the team knowing what the team purpose is and how the team purpose was created. Because how many people get a job and actually have no clue about how the business or the history that belongs?
Lucy, that's a slide in induction.
It is. It's
That's
that
a
simple.
single slide in the induction. Oh, we're being cynical now.
No,
So,
I think
common
it's the
purpose.
reality, because I think people get too busy doing the day-to-day business that they actually don't think of the basic building blocks to building a good team.
So, common purpose, number one. Right, I'll give you number two. Your role in achieving the common purpose.
So would you say that's more related to people?
I would say that's related to the person and the job that they do. And what I thought you were going to say just a few moments ago is, I wonder how many people have got a job and they don't know why they got the job. And for all of you listening or watching this, do you know why you are employed? Why did they choose you? What made you better than the rest? Or maybe you were the only applicant. Bit scary, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know why you got the job and you're quite recently appointed, why not go to your line manager and ask, why me? Because they should know.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they're not facetious.
It would be really nice as well that actually they wouldn't need to go and ask because they'd already been told.
Well, I wonder how many people get told by them. I reckon I could count that on the fingers of no hands.
So that's a really interesting point, because fundamentally, for us to be able to build awesome teams, the team needs to know individually and collectively what is appreciated about them. What do they bring that's different and special?
So let's talk about a really important team now. So let's talk about a social care team. So let's imagine a support worker goes to their line manager and says, why did you decide to give me a job? The cynical part of me suspects the answer is, well, we needed to recruit a support worker and you applied. Now, hopefully, they say, we needed to recruit a support worker. And as part of that process, we looked at the type of person we needed, their personal qualities, their knowledge, their skills, their experience, their attitude. And you were the one that most ticked the boxes. And that's what I would like to happen. But again, as you know, I do have these delusions. I'm being challenging now, aren't I, to our listener?
I'm not so sure that they're delusions, though, Tim.
I'm not so sure either, but you know. We do set out to challenge people's perceptions, don't we, Lucy?
I think it's a case of getting people to look in the mirror.
So, common purpose, and tell people their role in achieving the common purpose. What's next on our, what's it called, recipe for awesome teams?
I think you can tell people what their role is, but fundamentally, how do you know that they understand it and have the ability and the capacity to be able to do it effectively?
Okay, so we've got to make sure that they appreciate the impact they can make and appreciate the impact negative that they can make if they don't do it right. Yeah, that's
So
important.
I would ask, how would we ensure that they appreciate the impact? How would we ensure that they are doing what they should be doing? And how do they know how that would all get managed? So looking from a performance perspective, do they understand? Do they know what they need to do? And what systems and processes are in place to check out the standard of said performance?
You know, when people are subject to performance management and discipline,
Oh, yes.
I don't know why most of them just say, prove I knew how to do that. Because I expect many employers could not prove the person knew how to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree.
And I just don't know why more people are disciplined. Just say, I didn't know. They said you did the training. That doesn't prove I know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, most disciplinaries and performance managements would just fall flat at that point, wouldn't they?
I think that whole kind of language around performance management as well, it feels a little bit, well, for me, I understand it's the language, and for me, I just find it a little bit less positive.
There's less positive, like a euphemism for terrible.
Yeah, because you know what I'm like. Sometimes I use like words that really tell it how it is when I really feel that the need to tell it how it is. But sometimes I like to be mindful of the words because ultimately my brain is listening.
Okay. So you think performance management's a bit of a shit way of doing stuff?
I think if you've got to that point, then I would suggest that there's an element that you've got to look in the mirror and say, how did we get here?
Everybody's failed.
Yeah.
Even if it was that you employed the wrong person.
Yeah.
And if you employed the wrong person and there's no way to turn them into the right person, yes, you have to part company. But you've got to part company on the best of terms, and you've got to say, if you employed the wrong person, I'm sorry, but we got this wrong. But instead, what do we do with that person? We go, blame, 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 off to the scrapyard you go.
Yeah. And when we point that finger of blame, unfortunately, there are three pointing back. And so rarely do folk actually sit there and go, hang on a minute, my bad, what did I do here?
So if I go and apply for a job and they employ me and I'm the wrong person and they decide to let me go, maybe I should take them to court for employing me in the first place.
That's an interesting concept.
It is, isn't it? I have interesting thoughts.
Yeah, about the stress and impact to you based on the fact that they were the ones that gave you the confidence that you got the ability to do the job in the first place.
Well, they put all of this rubbish in the job description. That's what I applied for. But the job I ended up doing was far different than what's in the job description. So maybe I was well suited to the job description, but the actual job was really different. Now I'm not. And I've given up a really good job to do this. And now you've damaged my future career prospects. And I'm going to go and cry for the next 25 years.
I've got a really interesting story here. So we may remember at the very, very early part of recording these videos, I talked about the leak in my roof.
Yes.
Go with me here. Right.
But this is the water leak, not the vegetable leak.
Yeah, the water leak. Yeah.
Not the vegetable in the roof.
No, but I did have leek and potato soup for lunch today. But anyway, the leak on the roof. So the leak on my roof clearly had been happening for years. I didn't know. And when we discovered the very, very large leak, and the roof was stripped off, it was evident that the previous owners knew. So The builder that I had in, the roofer, he decided that he knew which system was necessary for my roof because it's got quite a low pitch. So when he stripped off the roof, he thought, because I've decided that this is the right system, I'm going to install it. Covered it all back over, put the tiles on, and before you know it, I had rain pouring in. What he didn't do at the point where he stripped off all the old tiles was actually look to see if the system that he decided originally was the appropriate one. Now, had he have looked closely, he would have noticed, because it's an old cottage, the ridge beams were a bit winky wonky, and that the system that he'd decided to put in place to alter the pitch of the roof was completely inappropriate for a roof that's got winky wonky ridge beams. So he fundamentally created larger gaps on my roof, hence why the water came in. But he wasn't prepared to admit he was wrong. He wasn't prepared to admit that he'd put in place the wrong system to fix my roof. And just because we employ somebody and we think we've put the right person in, how is it fair as we go along if we realise that, hang on a minute, we've made a boo-boo here? You can't just leave it be and let the water pour in, can you?
I've got two questions. Who fixed your roof?
Well, he did, because this was when we were at the care show. I left my dad to sort him out. So there's my lovely protective dad giving him what for and made him strip it off and put a new kind of roofie cover on.
And is winky wonky an engineering term?
It is in my house, yeah.
Okay, so when I was a civil engineer, if I designed something that then went winky wonky, I don't think I learned that when I went to college to learn civil engineering.
Yeah, but you see, the bit of the house that was built pre your birth, pre-50s. So
Okay.
back then they were allowed to build things winky wonky.
Oh, you mean it's really old, don't you, Lucy?
Yeah.
Talking of roofs, my garage roof has got to be replaced
Oh dear.
because it's gone winky wonky.
Oh dear.
I know, because an idiot called Martin. By the way, if you're thinking of having building work done by Martin, please don't. Okay. But the Martin I particularly refer to lives in Abergavenny. So Martin from Abergavenny, don't touch him with a barge pole because his barge pole will be bent.
Okay, so has he already touched said roof?
He built it, but then he got fired for being useless.
Okay, so
and now because it's inadequate, it's like that, not like that, and the whole thing's got to come off and be built properly.
so did you engage?
Yes.
Okay, so did you do your due diligence about whether he had the knowledge and skills for said job?
He was recommended by a relative.
Okay, and then as you were going through the process, did you provide the correct supervision and
Clearly not.
control?
Clearly not.
Okay, and when your roof went kind of winky wonky, kind of, did you reflect on your process and realize that fundamentally you were part of the problem?
I put my head through the hatch in the garage ceiling, looked up, and went.
You see, with my roof, I realized afterwards that I was part of the problem, because what I had not done, I had completely and utterly placed my trust into this roofer, and I hadn't gone and checked.
So let's get this back on track. Unlike our winky wonky roofs, if you put your trust completely in your team, there is a chance that your team will go winky wonky. And then you'll have to take it all apart. I'm doing the good links now, aren't I?
Yeah, you're doing a lateral chunk. It's very good.
And if you're lucky, like if I'm lucky, my roof can come off, all of the tiles can be saved, new timbers can go up, and all the tiles can go back. So if I'm lucky. If I'm not lucky, I've got a very expensive skip full of tiles. So, but even with a team, you might have to deconstruct your team. and reconstruct it. And even if you do that, even if you save all of the bits, there's going to be a few that get a bit broken. And that can't be, can there? Another thing they need, a team, is they need the right resources, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely the right resources.
Something I hear quite often, we haven't got enough of this, we haven't got enough of that.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be having to hear that sort of stuff. We should know exactly what is needed for different care requirements. And it shouldn't be people thinking, I've got to cut flannels in half.
But that's tangible resources. What about intangible resources?
Mm-hmm.
What about encouragement?
Yeah.
What about confidence?
Yeah.
What about inspiration?
Yeah. What about empowerment? Only recently I had the conversation where I was very clear to a provider where I said, you need to show this team that you have got their back. Because they needed to build the confidence in the employer.
Instead of playing the blame game.
Yeah.
Talking of which, have you visited any of the groups on Facebook recently?
I think I've had a little look, and I think a few of the posts that I had a little look at were, this is happening to me, that is happening to me. And in my usual Lucy-like style, I start with you.
There's quite a lot of blame gaming going on, isn't there? I think you're right, and I think the analogy of our respective winky wonky roofs is good. We were part of the problem. If it goes wrong, you're part of the problem, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You may not be a big part of the problem, but you're part of the problem. But I guess on reflection, we're quite a big part of the problem, aren't we?
Think so. I think if we've employed people to do a job,
yeah,
and we've not put in the correct processes or the correct skills, knowledge, we've not checked performance, we've not checked progress, it'd only be like me engaging somebody to come do a job and actually not explaining what the job spec was, and then leaving them to do whatever they like, turn up when they want, pay them before they've started the job. And then I'm like, well, they did the job wrong. Well, what do you expect?
Because you're about to embark on a building project in the near future, right?
Fingers crossed, Jess.
And if you do, if you don't exercise some measure of control, you'll end up with a winky wonky extension.
I absolutely will. And interestingly, the first architect we had who came out, both me and my dad sat there and went, don't think he's the one for us. And it was little things that we had to check out. He literally couldn't even type my email address correctly to ensure that he'd emailed me his prices and his quotes and whatever. And I think I had to chase him 3 or 4 times, and I had to email him to get him to respond to my email. So I was thinking, but if this is what he's like this early on, I dread to think what he would suggest I needed to build.
And how winky wonky it would be.
Interestingly, we know what we need to know before we need to know it. But how often do we really pay attention?
You always do this to me. You say things that take me a while to process. You mean we're psychic?
No, I think we've had experiences that are very similar beforehand, and that we have information that we potentially choose to dismiss, or we may dismiss our initial thoughts or feelings, or it might be, well, I saw them do that the first time, and you think, well, no, they're not going to do it again.
But there is an element, isn't there, of being swept along on a wave.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened with me with my building project. And it happens with many people. And it happens as well when you're managing a team.
Yeah, because you can be easily swept along on the you've got agency and you need to get your agency down. So then you feel the pressure to employ the first person that comes in and has got a head, 2 arms and 2 legs and a body.
Yeah. So a common purpose, know your role, resources. What was the third one? I've forgotten now.
It was about not just necessarily like tangible resources, but the intangible ones. It's the support, the recognition, recognizing that if something, as a business, you have responsibility for these things, and that ultimately you can be part of the problem.
Now, some of this really important. Linked to what we've just said, I think you also need the courage to change things if it's not working. And I think of all of the things in managing a team, having the courage to say, this is not working, we need to change something.
Yeah. So
It's
could
the
we
hard.
suggest recognition?
It's the hard. It's a recognition it's not working as well as it needs to work. I think courage is a big part of teamwork, team leading. Do you know we managed to talk about teams without talking very much about the conventional teamwork stuff?
Yeah, because I think you can look at models and gosh, we could talk about all sorts of things. We could talk about crabs in a bucket. We could talk about the drama triangle, tall poppy syndrome, all sorts of stuff. Tim's going, what are you talking about?
No, you've talked about crabs in a bucket before.
We have. So there's lots that we can talk about, but fundamentally, it's stuff that relates to people and how people do being people.
But ultimately, people are quite good at teamwork.
Yeah, they are. Well, we're social creatures, aren't we?
And if left to their own devices, people tend to work quite well in teams.
If they've got some sort of direction,
On purpose.
some sort of leadership, some sort of recognition.
Do you know, though, if you chuck a bunch of people together, somebody will end up leading them.
Yeah, so this is where we come full circle. If we go back to what Tuckman talked about in the forming and the storming. So people can come together in whatever area of life and form teams, and we show not necessarily exactly who we are, and then we go through that process of storming. And unless a team goes through that process of storming, where they're kind of, grumping and jiggling around one another and they're kind of really showing who they actually are, it doesn't actually get to move on, and that cycle gets to repeat. And this is where leadership is key.
I got a question for you. If you were doing a training course,
yes,
and you were a participant,
yes,
and there was a team exercise,
yes,
would you be the leader?
Well, that would depend on how the opportunity to be the leader comes along. So if you ask me if I'm in a room of I need a volunteer, somebody put their hand up, absolutely yes, every single time. If somebody says, Lucy, you are a leader, I go, absolutely fine, not a problem. If somebody said, Lucy, you're not a leader in this team, this is not your turn, I'd say, absolutely fine. Very, very young, many, many years ago, I used to be an air cadet. Who knew? And I did all sorts of wonderful things. But one of those things was that I went to, I stayed at RAF Hereford, and I did a leadership course, and it was incredibly whole other level intense and crazy. And it was things like building rafts out of pallets and kind of plastic containers, and it was just something that I naturally gravitated towards, being a natural leader. That is in one of my values.
That was the longest way of saying yes.
Yeah, well, you know,
that was just a yes, wasn't it?
It was, but it was an interesting yes, where people found a little bit of an insight into me. I learned to fly a glider, you know.
Okay.
I can shoot as well.
And how often have those skills come in useful in later life?
All the time, every single day.
Okay. So you've flown a glider today?
No, but I was watching a video this morning of a chap who was flying a plane with a lady next to him who he'd been in paid to take her up in this plane so that her partner on the ground could put a "Will you marry me?" like a reverse kind of marriage proposal thing. And he flew over the house and she was like, "Oh, asking me to marry me." I know, look, it's me you're talking to. So yes, gliders and things like that are not in my day every day, but leading myself. Leadership is.
Okay. I wish I hadn't.
No, you do, because you again, you've got another insight into me. And that's super important because as teams together, we're not just one-sided, are we? There's more to us than meets the eye. And often, because we're all different, it's about how those differences can be brought together and grown and encouraged, and where those differences are cause uncomfortable rubs, how we actually learn to manage those differences.
Okay. We could do a whole episode about that.
Managing uncomfortable rubs and differences in
No,
teams.
the different aspects of our personality.
Yeah, could do.
That's interesting.
I
So,
also think there's a massive thing in recognition. And I think a staff team need to be seen and they need to be heard. And I think that's key.
you know, we could run training course on this.
I already do. But we could.
We could.
In fact, actually, I'm running 2 at the moment.
Are you?
And I'm both doing them differently. Yeah, absolutely. One I've done hybrid. So I've done some one-to-one time and I've done some group time. And then another where I've spent a lot of time with the team and we've had to be flexible and bend and move and whatever to whatever's going on around them. And they've got an e-learning module, and then I spend time with them regularly. Yeah, it's quite good.
And back after the commercial break.
Oh, yeah, but you see, there's no like, people have to know who I am and what my business is. I haven't kind of touted that, have I?
I think we know who you are now.
I don't know. I don't think many people do. I think some people do. I don't think many people do.
You've been very active on LinkedIn lately, haven't you?
I haven't. I actually thought I've posted twice today, but I actually haven't posted in well over a week.
You posted a picture of a hill.
I did. I went out and about today with my dad and my daughter, and we went for a little stroll and we went for lunch and we sat and we watched the clouds and we looked through my dad's binoculars, which I think are potentially older than him.
Wow. I posted on LinkedIn about a hill as well.
I noticed you've got some really cool sheep in that picture.
They're cute sheep, aren't they?
They're very cute. I like sheep.
They were very photogenic sheep. And unlike most sheep, they didn't run away.
So have you ever watched, now this is bringing it back to talking about how to build an awesome team. Have you ever watched those kind of farming programs where they've mapped the behavior of sheep and where they actually fly drones over sheep and they've marked on the backs of sheep different colors for the different like ages and how the matriarch works with sheep?
Right. No.
Have you not?
No.
So cool with teamwork. And
what I noticed about sheep is when you walk down the lanes, the sheep are often close to the fence.
Yeah.
And when you come along, the lambs all run away.
Yeah.
Which is natural, isn't it?
Yeah, because they've not learnt that they don't need to run away yet.
And then they all go and stand next to their mothers.
Yeah.
or a sheep that looks like their mother, and they all look the same. But there you go. They
But
stand next
fundamentally, the lamb will go to its mother.
eventually. Then, if you stay there, they all come close to you. Then, because you go from being something that's a threat to something that isn't a threat to something which is a feed source of food.
So if we were to take a segue and go like laterally across to our conversation, do you think consistency, predictability, stability is fundamentally key for teams to be able to grow together and be awesome?
I think consistency of leadership is. I think stability is to a degree, but I also do think you do occasionally need to control, to destabilize the team in a controlled manner in order to broaden its horizons. And I think that's called innovation and evolution. So I think you need to chuck in a curveball now and again in a controlled way to push it to expand its abilities. And I think effective leaders do that unconsciously.
Interesting.
And ineffective leaders make a right mess of it. I think if we were just consistent and stable, we would still be riding horses, not driving cars. I think we need to push boundaries in order to innovate.
So we need to reflect, don't we?
Mm-hmm. But also, we do need to say, we've chatted for 45 minutes. Don't we go fast?
No, but we always do. We could talk for hours.
We could, but we probably shouldn't.
No, we won't, because it you know, it's 10 to 8 in the evening, and girls got TV to watch.
I've got a report to write.
Well, that's nice for you.
I know, but it's like 3/4 written, but then I needed my client to send me some information, which they've now sent me, and I need to finish it because on Wednesday I've got to do another audit, and if I don't finish the report, they'll all sort of blur together in my head. And I've got to, I've got to drive. You know where I live in South Wales? I've got to drive to Pembrokeshire tomorrow. It's 2 hours west. Then I've got to drive to Essex. So I will pass within 8 miles of my house on my way to Essex.
Okay.
And I'm not going to stop and call into my house because that'll add 2 hours to my journey, won't it?
Yeah, well, if it was me and I called into my house, I probably wouldn't leave and drive to Essex. I don't think I'd drive to Essex anyway.
I quite like the M4. So I'm going to drive the entire length of the M4. Plus some tomorrow. It's going to be a monster journey. There you go, podcasts.
Oh, absolutely. So let's just change the conversation completely. What is your favourite podcast at the moment?
I'm listening to The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett at the moment.
You know what? How funny, because that is my favourite podcast.
Well, I'm not listening to the podcast, I'm listening to the book.
Oh, the book. Oh, well, that'd be an interesting one. I absolutely love, though, all of the podcasts he does and the interviews, and yeah, they're fantastic.
So I've listened to a few of those, but I'm listening to the book, but I borrowed the ebook, audiobook from my library. And what did I listen to? I just finished listening to Fake Law.
Okay.
By The Secret Barrister, which is the sequel to The Secret Barrister by The Secret Barrister. And that was really interesting. That was really good. So I listened to a mixture of factual books and fiction books. And I like to listen to things that make me think.
I was going to ask you, for what purpose?
When I'm walking my 5 miles a day, but not today because it rained. I like to listen to things that make my brain fire. And then it makes my brain fire, and I stop, and I type myself an email. And all I do is put the idea in the subject of the email. So I've got loads of unopened emails in my inbox of just ideas. And sometimes I go to look at them and think, what the hell did that mean? And it
So
doesn't fire again. But
you were talking about like kind of innovation and stability and things. You see, the thing is, this is where podcasts are really good, and expanding the information that comes into our awareness, because fundamentally it will challenge the thinking that we have and the reality that we experience.
the thought struck me the other day when I posted episode 11.
Okay.
People don't need to watch us, do they?
No, they can listen.
They could just listen to us.
Yeah, just put YouTube on and listen.
And then put your phone in your pocket. You haven't got to look at us then. I mean, we're not, we're not that special to look at, are we?
I don't quite know what to say about that. I'm a little bit.
We're not anything special, are we? Other than
Well, we are special. I've got new glasses.
I've got new glasses as well.
Yeah, I've got new glasses.
How much did your glasses cost? I bet they didn't cost as little as mine did.
They were a lot of money because they're varifocals.
Mine cost £27.
Ah, I don't think you want to know what mine cost.
Probably they cost the same as what my wife's cost.
Well, if I was to suggest you just put another 2 in front of the 27.
If her glasses cost 227 quid, I'd be well happy.
Well, 2 pairs, and they were meant to be nearer 500, and I was like, I'm not paying that.
Mine came £27.
Bargain.
And I put them on, and Sue said they make me look intelligent. Is that a compliment or not? And then she said, you know what I mean? Distinguished. It's just not making it better, is it?
Well, my daughter told me I look quite geeky.
Is that a compliment?
In our house it is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Right, so let's wrap this up and say we hope you enjoyed episode 12. We, as always, hope that we made you think. But we hope you're going to do something with what you heard. We hope we gave you ideas. We hope we inspired you. We hope you wrote a few things down, that you're going to do something about it. Because if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And that probably isn't what you want.
And I think there's something fundamentally key that people probably haven't thought about. It might be that people want us to tell them exactly how they should do things, or how they are meant to do things, or how they can do things. And often we just kind of give nuggets, small little chunks of information. If we were to tell people exactly how they need to do this, that wouldn't leave the space for them to be able to go and learn for themselves, which fundamentally will create new neural pathways and new behaviours.
To grow.
To grow, yeah. If we tell you exactly how to do it, that's not going to make anybody grow and reach their own potential. So for those people who think, why don't you just tell us exactly how to do it? Because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to give you little things that set light bulbs off in your head and allow you to go and explore and find out for yourselves.
And that's why we do what we do.
It is.
Switch off the recording. Thank you.